Samuel Idoko walked through his father's estate with a sense of entitlement, head held high, eyes gleaming with pride. As Chief Idoko's only son, he enjoyed a life of abundance. His mother, a well-known businesswoman, had grown her wealth in the most prestigious circles of Nigeria, ensuring her family wanted for nothing. Samuel, the apple of her eye, had become accustomed to the privileges and freedoms that his mother's wealth afforded him. Chief Idoko, though busy with her enterprises, never hesitated to indulge her son. No matter his demands, his mother found a way to make it happen. His friends knew him as King Samuel, not because he was a ruler but because he lived like royalty. There was no request too grand, no whim too excessive. From sleek cars to the latest fashion, Samuel lacked nothing. His overconfidence, however, sometimes bordered on arrogance, and he hardly saw consequences for his behavior. His father's latest investment in education, a modern secondary school located in a prime area, became an opportunity for Chief Idoko to help Samuel understand responsibility. She arranged for him to teach physics there, to gather experience, as she put it. Although the decision surprised Samuel, he quickly took on the challenge, knowing the position came with influence. The idea of being a teacher was far from his original aspirations, yet he found the idea of authority appealing. As he walked through the spacious, gleaming school halls for the first time, a feeling of power surged through him. He would teach and also manage some of the school's affairs with the senior staff. The students noticed him instantly. Samuel had a magnetic charm and easy smile that drew them in. Whispers about him circulated quickly, some admiring, others curious. He was a young, stylish man, different from the older teachers they were accustomed to. Within a short time, Samuel's charm won over much of the student body, particularly the girls. Chioma and Excel, three of the most admired and confident girls in school, were drawn to him in ways they couldn't explain. Samuel, flattered by their admiration, decided he could make his time here more than just a job. But behind his charm lay motives that none of the girls saw coming. As days turned into weeks, Samuel grew more comfortable in his new role. Teaching physics, while not his passion, became a way to show off his intelligence and keep the students captivated. He easily related to them, being young and stylish himself. He wasn't like the other teachers, who wore traditional attire and spoke in monotonous tones. Instead, Samuel brought life into his lessons with jokes, relatable examples, and, of course, his charisma. In a short time, he became a favorite, especially among the girls. The teachers noticed this, but no one objected. Samuel's popularity was bringing the school a good reputation. Students who struggled with physics before now looked forward to his classes, and Chief Idoko couldn't have been prouder. She heard constant praise about her son's teaching skills, about how he was doing her proud by handling things so well. Unbeknownst to her, though, Samuel had plans that went far beyond his duties as a teacher. Samuel took a particular interest in 5 girls, Chioma and Excel, Miriam and Igioma. They were known as the queens of Class 10, not just because they were beautiful but because they had a confidence and elegance that set them apart. They were always neatly dressed, spoke English fluently, and had the kind of popularity that made others want to be close to them. Samuel's attention towards them was subtle at first. He complimented their intelligence, praised their efforts in class, and subtly encouraged them to attend his extra coaching sessions. Before long, Chioma and the others looked forward to those sessions. They saw Samuel as not just a teacher but a mentor, someone who cared about their success. He gave them his number, in case you need extra help with your assignments, he said, flashing his winning smile. The girls felt privileged, delighted by the personal attention from someone they saw as sophisticated and worldly. Little did they know, however, that Samuel's motives were anything but pure. Samuel's charm, now a well-practiced routine, worked effortlessly on the 5 girls. During his private sessions, he would make subtle gestures, light touches on their shoulders, compliments that felt just a little more than friendly, and deep stares that lingered a bit too long. Chioma noticed it first, feeling flattered yet nervous. She had heard stories of older men's attention, but Samuel felt different. He was young, handsome, and, to her, sophisticated. The thought of having his attention made her heart flutter, and she couldn't hide the blush that crept up her cheeks. For Anne, Samuel's attention was thrilling. She prided herself on her beauty, often the center of attention, but the allure of a forbidden connection with her teacher sparked something deeper. He told her she was brilliant, that she had potential to reach great heights, and she believed him. He knew how to say just what she wanted to hear. His praise went beyond academics, praising her poise and confidence. Soon, she found herself looking forward to these extra lessons, feeling they had a unique connection. Excel was different. She was cautious but intrigued. She watched the way Samuel interacted with the other girls, noting his smooth words and flirtatious charm. She was a bit skeptical but still drawn to him, curious about why he showed her so much attention. He treated her like she was special, telling her she had a unique intelligence that others lacked. She was hesitant, but her admiration for him grew each day. Soon, she began staying behind after class, just like Chioma and Anne, slowly allowing herself to be captivated by Samuel's allure. Samuel knew exactly how to manipulate each of the girls. With Chioma, he played the protector, guiding her gently. With Anne, he played to her vanity, making her feel like a queen. With Excel, he showed patience and understanding, breaking down her defenses little by little. And he was equally cunning with Miriam and Igioma, each receiving a tailored dose of his charm. One by one, the girls began to see Samuel as more than just a teacher. For them, he was becoming someone significant, a mentor, a friend, and maybe something more. But none of them realized they were not alone in his attention. Samuel's carefully crafted facade hid the truth, that his interest was driven not by care but by self-indulgence and a thrill in manipulating the girls' emotions. The first signs of trouble appeared subtly. Chioma noticed a sudden fatigue, followed by bouts of nausea that puzzled her. She brushed it off, blaming exam stress and late nights of studying. But as her symptoms continued, her concerns grew. Then Anne began experiencing similar issues, morning queasiness and dizzy spells. She too kept it to herself, afraid of what the truth might be. Excel, always sharp and observant, quickly sensed something was wrong with her own body, but her fear of judgment held her back from speaking up. Miriam and Igioma were the last to feel the signs, but soon they too began missing classes more frequently, each feeling increasingly isolated and anxious. Unknown to each other, the 5 girls were now dealing with the same dilemma. Their conditions became harder to hide, and rumors started circulating among the students. They each found themselves spending more time at the school clinic, where the observant nurse started to grow suspicious. The day of revelation came when Chioma fainted in class. It was impossible to ignore anymore, and she was rushed to the school clinic. The nurse, a stern woman with decades of experience, had seen similar cases before and gently questioned Chioma. As she confirmed the girl's worst fears, Chioma's face turned pale. The nurse insisted she inform her parents, but Chioma begged for secrecy, her fear outweighing the shock of her condition. Despite her promise, the nurse felt compelled to inform the school's administration of the growing issue among the girls. News spread rapidly. The parents of the girls were called in, one by one, and the school administration began investigating, trying to understand what was happening. Samuel, meanwhile, noticed the change in the girls' behavior but remained confident his secrets would stay hidden. He maintained his friendly facade, convinced that his power over the girls would keep them silent. Yet, as more girls visited the clinic and the nurse noted similar symptoms, the school management couldn't ignore the pattern. They began piecing things together, and Samuel's once charmed life began to show cracks. The sense of dread among the girls grew with each passing day, as they realized that their trust in Samuel had led them to a dark path. The web Samuel had woven around them was unraveling, and the truth was inching ever closer to the light. As the investigation into the girls' conditions deepened, Samuel became increasingly paranoid. He noticed whispers in the corridors and sidelong glances from teachers. The administration had called meetings, and he felt the weight of their scrutiny pressing down on him like a heavy blanket. Samuel, once the center of admiration, now felt like a man walking on thin ice, afraid it would crack beneath his feet at any moment. The girls were summoned individually to speak with the school administration, creating an air of tension that settled heavily over the school. Chioma, trembling with fear, sat in the principal's office, recalling the promises Samuel had made to her, the attention she had craved, and the trust she had placed in him. She had never imagined this could happen to her, and now she felt betrayed and terrified. "Chioma, we're concerned about your health and the health of other students," the principal said gently, her voice warm yet firm. "We need to understand what's going on and we want to help you. Please be honest with us." Chioma's heart raced as she looked up at the principal, feeling trapped. Her loyalty to Samuel and the fear of exposing herself held her back. But the truth was too heavy to carry alone. "I don't know," she stammered, biting her lip. "It's just stress from exams." Meanwhile, Anne sat in another office, her mind racing as she tried to gather her thoughts. The nurse had informed the administration about her symptoms, and Anne felt the walls closing in. She thought of Samuel, his charming smile, the way he made her feel special, and how it had spiraled into this nightmare. "And we care about your well-being," the counselor urged. "If something is wrong, we can help. Are you afraid to speak up?" With tears streaming down her cheeks, Anne finally nodded, whispering, "It's Samuel. He said he cared about us." As the girls began to voice their fears, a picture started to emerge. One by one, they shared their experiences, describing Samuel's advances, his manipulation, and the trust they had placed in him. The revelation sent shockwaves through the administration. They hadn't expected such a deep betrayal from a teacher who had once been viewed as a promising asset to the school. With the truth coming to light, the administration decided to take swift action. Samuel's charm had worked for so long, but now it felt like a noose tightening around his neck. As he walked through the school, he noticed students whispering and pointing. His confidence began to falter, and he felt an impending sense of doom. Samuel met with Chief Idoko that evening, trying to maintain his composure. "The students love my teaching," he said, forcing a smile. "I'm making a difference." But deep down, he knew the truth was unraveling quickly. His mother looked at him closely, sensing something was off. "Samuel, are you sure everything is all right? You look troubled." The facade he had built began to crumble as he realized the consequences of his actions were closing in. The atmosphere at the school grew thick with tension as whispers turned into open conversations. Students exchanged theories and speculated about Samuel's future. Each day, the 5 girls' experiences became the topic of hushed discussions, and it seemed as though the entire student body was on edge. Even those who once idolized Samuel began to question the nature of his character. Meanwhile, Samuel's nights were restless. He couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every time he stepped into a classroom, he sensed the change in the air. The admiration that once surrounded him was fading, replaced by fear and confusion. He began to worry that the walls would close in on him entirely. The truth felt like a storm brewing on the horizon, and Samuel was stuck in the eye of it, waiting for the inevitable impact. At home, Chief Idoko noticed Samuel's increasingly erratic behavior. He had become distant, avoiding eye contact and speaking in half-hearted responses. Concerned, she insisted on a heart-to-heart talk. "Samuel, I know you're hiding something. You can tell me anything," she urged, her eyes searching his face for honesty. "I'm fine, Mama. Just busy with work," he replied, forcing a smile that failed to reach his eyes. Deep down, he wished he could share his burden with her, but shame held him captive. As days turned into a week, the girls found solace in each other. They met discreetly, sharing their fears and the growing realization that they had been manipulated. The bond they had formed through their experiences became a source of strength. They agreed it was time to confront Samuel together, to seek the truth and reclaim their lives. One afternoon, they waited for Samuel after school, determination etched on their faces. As he walked toward them, they could see the weariness in his eyes. "What do you want?" he asked, feigning confidence. "Samuel, we need to talk," Chioma said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "You need to tell us the truth." "About what?" he replied, but his tone lacked conviction. "About us. About what you did," and interjected, her hands trembling at her sides. The moment felt electric, charged with unspoken words and raw emotions. Samuel's facade began to crack. He realized he could no longer charm his way out of this. He took a step back, suddenly feeling the weight of their collective gaze. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone," he said, his voice shaky. I thought you liked it. We trusted you." Excel shouted, her frustration boiling over. "You used us, Samuel." The confrontation unfolded like a storm, with emotions spilling over. Each girl recounted how Samuel had manipulated their trust, twisting their admiration into something darker. The pain in their voices pierced through Samuel, and for the first time, he felt the guilt wash over him. "I'm sorry," he mumbled, the words feeling foreign on his tongue. But it was too late. The moment had arrived where his charm had failed him, and the consequences of his actions were surfacing. The girls would no longer be silenced. As the confrontation escalated, the atmosphere shifted. The moment they had all dreaded had arrived. The truth was out in the open. They were no longer victims in silence but warriors ready to fight for their dignity. The confrontation reached a boiling point as emotions ran high. The girls stood united, faces flushed with anger and betrayal, while Samuel struggled to regain control over a situation that was spiraling out of his hands. "You're being dramatic," he said, attempting to deflect their anger. But his words fell flat in the charged atmosphere. "You think we're being dramatic?" Igioma shot back, her voice trembling with fury. "You took advantage of us. You lied to us, and now we're paying the price." The weight of their words hung heavy in the air. For the first time, Samuel felt vulnerable, exposed. He had always been the one in control, but now he was cornered. The 5 girls were no longer just students. They were a collective force, and the power dynamic had shifted dramatically. Chioma, still shaking from the confrontation, decided to take the lead. "We're not going to let you manipulate us anymore. We're going to speak up, and we'll make sure others know what you've done." The courage in her voice ignited a fire in the other girls. They had each been afraid of the repercussions, but together they felt empowered. Samuel's charm had worked on them individually, but now, united, they were ready to fight back. "What do you mean?" Samuel asked, attempting to mask his fear with bravado. "You think anyone will believe you? I'm a teacher, a respected one at that." "Respected?" And scoff. "You've lost that respect. We'll tell our parents, the administration, everyone." At that moment, a flicker of panic crossed Samuel's face. He had relied on his charm and manipulation for so long that the thought of being exposed terrified him. The girls could see it, and it fueled their resolve. "Do you know what this could do to us?" Miriam interjected, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "We have to think about our futures. We can't let you get away with this." The confrontation left Samuel at a loss. He felt the ground shifting beneath him, the walls closing in, and he knew he was cornered. "Please, let's just talk about this." "I can explain," he pleaded, but his words were met with a chorus of resolute silence from the girls. "You had your chance to explain," Excel said firmly. "Now it's our turn to speak." As the girls turned to leave, Samuel's heart raced. The realization that his actions would come to light was sinking in. He had lived a life shielded by privilege and charm, but now the storm he had ignored was crashing down. That evening, the girls met again to strategize. They decided to go to the school administration the next day. Each of them prepared to tell their stories, no longer ashamed of what had happened. The following morning, they marched into the principal's office, hearts pounding in unison. The storm they had begun would soon make waves that could no longer be contained. As the girls entered the principal's office, a heavy silence settled in the room. The principal, a stern woman named Mrs. Akwu, looked up from her paperwork, her eyes narrowing at the sight of the 5 girls standing together, visibly tense yet resolute. "What can I do for you all today?" she asked, her voice steady but curious. "Ma, we need to talk to you about Samuel," Chioma began, her voice firm despite the fluttering in her stomach. The other girls nodded in agreement, their expressions a mix of determination and fear. Mrs. Aqua's brow furrowed slightly. "Samuel. What about him?" "He's been taking advantage of us," and blurted out, her voice shaking with emotion. "He's been manipulating us, making us think he cared when all he wanted was to use us." The principal's expression shifted from curiosity to concern. "What do you mean by using you? Please tell me everything." With hearts pounding and voices trembling, the girls began recounting their experiences. They described how Samuel had preyed on their vulnerabilities, how he had lured them into private tutoring sessions under the guise of mentorship, and how he had turned their trust into something toxic. Each girl shared her story, their voices weaving together a tapestry of manipulation and betrayal. Mrs. Aku listened intently, her expression growing more serious with each revelation. "This is very serious," she said when they finished. "I need to take your statements down and investigate this matter further." Just then the door swung open and Samuel entered, his demeanor deceptively calm. He seemed surprised to see the girls in the principal's office. "What's going on here?" he asked, feigning ignorance. "Samuel, we need to talk about your interactions with these girls," Mrs. Aqua said, her voice steady. "I've been informed of serious allegations against you." Samuel's face paled as the weight of her words sank in. "Allegations? What allegations?" he stammered, his confident facade cracking. Before anyone could respond, the girls exchanged glances, their expressions hardening. "You know what you did," Excel said, her voice clear and unwavering. "It's time you faced the consequences." "I can explain everything," he insisted, desperation creeping into his voice. "This is all a misunderstanding. I care about my students." But the girls stood their ground. "No, Samuel," Chioma said firmly. "You don't get to manipulate us anymore. We trusted you, and you abused that trust." As Mrs. Aqua began documenting their statements, it became clear to Samuel that he was losing control. The atmosphere in the principal's office grew increasingly tense as Mrs. Aqua took detailed notes of the girls' testimonies. Each word felt like a nail in Samuel's coffin, sealing the fate of his once glorious reputation. "Can you explain these claims, Samuel?" Mrs. Aqua asked, her voice firm yet composed. The authority in her tone left no room for evasion. "You've been accused of manipulating your students under the pretense of mentorship." Samuel looked at the girls, desperation flooding his mind. "It's all a misunderstanding," he pleaded, his voice rising in pitch. "I help students academically. I never meant to hurt anyone. They're just confused." And shook her head, her voice resolute. "No, Samuel. We weren't confused. We were misled. You know what you did." The principal regarded him silently, her expression inscrutable. "Your position as a teacher requires you to act responsibly. Manipulating students is unacceptable." "Samuel, your actions have consequences," Mrs. Aqua stated. "We will be conducting a formal investigation into these allegations, and until then, you are suspended from your duties." His heart sank. The respect he had commanded was gone, replaced by pity and disdain. Samuel realized he had become a cautionary tale, a man brought low by his own arrogance and manipulation. Meanwhile, the 5 girls stood together, a powerful force united by their shared struggle. They felt lighter, the burden of secrecy lifted from their shoulders. In the days that followed, news of Samuel's suspension spread like wildfire. Mrs. Aqua worked tirelessly to conduct a thorough investigation, and soon more students came forward, revealing their own stories of manipulation and discomfort. As the investigation progressed, the girls leaned on each other for support. They began attending counseling sessions, finding solace in speaking about their experiences and healing together. One afternoon, Chioma suggested they organize a meeting to share their stories openly with their classmates. Let's turn this into something positive, she said. We can help others understand what happened and prevent it from happening again. With the support of Mrs. Akwu, they scheduled a school assembly. The day arrived, and the auditorium was filled with students, teachers, and parents, all buzzing with curiosity about the unexpected event. The 5 girls stood nervously at the front. Chioma stepped forward, her voice steady. Thank you all for being here. We want to share our experiences, not just to raise awareness but to empower others. What happened to us shouldn't happen to anyone else. Each girl took a turn sharing her story, detailing the manipulation, the confusion, and ultimately, the courage it took to speak out. The powerful stories resonated with many. When they finished, the auditorium erupted in applause, not just for the courage of the girls, but for the message they had shared. In the weeks that followed, workshops were organized to educate both students and teachers about healthy relationships, consent, and the responsibilities that came with mentorship. The 5 girls were invited to be part of these discussions, and they embraced their roles as advocates for change. As for Samuel, the investigation concluded with serious consequences. He lost his job and faced legal repercussions for his actions.
Alright, so what did you learn from this story? Share it in the comment section. And please subscribe to this channel right now and turn on post notification so that whenever a story is posted, you'll be the first to get notified and you'll be the first to watch. Like and share this. Don't forget to drop your lessons in the comment section. Subscribe and see you in our next story. Bye bye.